Formula One is currently being ripped apart by two completely different philosophies. On one side, you have the billionaires trying to buy every human genius on the planet. Look at Aston Martin. Lawrence Stroll is not just building a racing team, he is building a monopoly on brainpower. He threw a blank check at Adrian Newey. He bought Andy Cowell from Mercedes. He poached Enrico Cardile from Ferrari. He even walked right into the Haas garage and stripped them of their sharpest trackside talent, poaching their veteran race engineer Gary Gannon for 2025. Aston Martin is aggressively hoarding human capital. But human capital is expensive. It is strictly monitored by the cost cap. It gets tired, and it is finite. Haas looked at Aston Martin's endless spending spree and realized something terrifying. If a midfield team tries to fight a billionaire in a bidding war for engineers, they die. So Haas stopped fighting that war. They didn't buy more trackside engineers. Instead, they executed the most brilliant, legally airtight engineering heist in modern F1 history. They brought in Toyota Gazoo Racing. The CFD loophole Toyota just exploited to give Haas a massive advantage is so fundamentally broken that the FIA cannot ban it. While Aston Martin is busy poaching humans, Haas just hacked the digital matrix. To understand exactly how Ayao Komatsu outsmarted the entire grid, you have to look at the invisible prison the FIA forces every team into. It is called the aerodynamic testing restrictions, or ATR. The FIA knows that aerodynamics win championships. So, to stop teams like Mercedes or Red Bull from simply running their wind tunnels 24 hours a day, the governing body dictates exactly how much testing you are allowed to do. It is a sliding scale. If you win the Constructors' Championship, your testing time gets brutally slashed. If you finish dead last, you get the maximum allowance. It is designed to create parity, but physical wind tunnels are only half of the aerodynamic war. The real battleground is digital. It happens inside supercomputers running computational fluid dynamics. CFD is the lifeblood of modern Formula One. It allows an engineer to build a digital twin of an F1 front wing, place it inside a virtual bounding box, and pump millions of simulated air molecules across the carbon fiber. You can see exactly where a vortex collapses. You can track where downforce bleeds away. It is incredibly fast and absolutely lethal to lap times. Because of this, the FIA regulates CFD compute time with an iron fist. They do not just give you a time limit, they measure your digital exhaust. The FIA tracks allocation units, raw compute hours, megaflops, and grid cell counts. You cannot just throw a warehouse full of server racks at a floor concept and run 10 million iterations. The absolute second your simulations exceed your assigned ATR quota, the FIA drops the hammer. Catastrophic fines, wind tunnel bans, championship point deductions. Every single technical director on the grid is locked inside this digital cage. Ferrari has to meticulously count every single solve. Red Bull has to budget their simulation mesh down to the individual hour. And then there was Haas. For their entire existence, Haas operated as the leanest, most fragile outfit on the grid. They bought every non-listed mechanical part they legally could from Scuderia Ferrari. They outsourced their chassis manufacturing to Dallara over in Italy. They rented time in Ferrari's Maranello wind tunnel. They operated out of 3 different countries with a skeleton crew. It was a brilliant survival strategy, but it lacked a spine. When the mid-season development race kicked off every summer, Haas routinely vanished from the points. They simply lacked the raw engineering bandwidth to iterate fast enough to keep up with the giants. Then Günther Steiner left. Ayao Komatsu took over, and everything changed. When Toyota Gazoo Racing announced a multi-year technical partnership with Haas, the paddock barely blinked. Most rival team principals assumed it was a glorified marketing deal, a branding exercise. People saw the Toyota logos stamped on the rear wing and figured Toyota was just writing a sponsorship check and sending a few junior mechanics over to get some cheap F1 experience. They completely missed the heist. What Toyota and Haas actually built in the shadows is a legally bulletproof, parallel processing pipeline, a system that completely bypasses the core intent of the FIA's aerodynamic restrictions without violating a single syllable of the written rulebook. To see the matrix, you have to open Section F of the FIA operational code. Read what the governing body actually regulates. The FIA regulates the simulation of fluid flow around specific 3D geometries representing a Formula One car or its direct components. If your supercomputer is actively solving Navier-Stokes equations over the surface of an F1 floor, that solve counts against your ATR quota. It burns your allowance. Read that definition very carefully. The FIA regulates the aerodynamic simulation of the car surface itself. It does not regulate software methodology development. It does not regulate internal structural stress modeling. It does not regulate carbon fiber layup flow dynamics. It does not regulate thermal cooling simulations inside manufacturing molds. And above all else, it does not regulate the core mathematical algorithms used to make CFD solvers run faster. Enter Toyota Gazoo Racing. Toyota operates one of the most terrifyingly advanced automotive computational facilities on planet Earth. Their supercomputing clusters, situated in Cologne and Japan, run continuous, bleeding-edge simulations for World Endurance Championship hypercars, World Rally Championship machines, and global production vehicles. They have computational scale that makes Formula One teams look like indie startups. Under this new technical partnership, Toyota provides Haas with dedicated engineering hardware, manufacturing capacity, and massive data infrastructure. But they are not running unauthorized F1 front-wing simulations on Toyota servers. That would trigger an immediate disqualification. Instead, Toyota's computational division works entirely on the toolchain. Think of CFD simulation, exactly like digital video rendering. If you have a poorly optimized, clunky rendering engine, solving one aerodynamic frame takes 1,000 supercomputing hours. It wastes your quota. It burns your allocation units. But if you optimize the grid meshing algorithm, clean up the turbulence modeling code, and refine the deep mathematical solver equations, that exact same solve takes 10 hours. Toyota took over the heavy lifting on software methodology. They build the mesh refinement engines. They handle the synthetic data generation. They execute the raw code optimization. Because none of that solver code development actually involves an F1 car geometry, 0 allocation units are deducted from Haas's FIA cap. When a Haas engineer sits down to actually load an F1 floor geometry into their computer, they are no longer using off-the-shelf, slow commercial solvers. They are deploying an ultra-optimized, bespoke CFD pipeline that has been pre-tuned by Toyota's world-class computational scientists. Where a team like Williams or Alpine might waste 30% of their hard-earned FIA compute quota just processing noisy mesh grids, crashing servers, and resolving mathematical errors, Haas gets crisp, hyper-accurate, perfectly converging aerodynamic solves on the very first attempt. Every single teraflop of Haas's FIA-allowed CFD quota is now burned purely on high-value aerodynamic iteration. They extract 10 times the actionable data out of the exact same FIA limit. Efficiency multiplication. Fully legal. Subtle. Brutal. But the CFD solver optimization is just the first phase of this technical masterclass. The second phase is the physical to digital transition. This is where the sheer scale of Toyota breaks the cost cap wide open. For a floor to generate massive ground effect downforce under heavy cornering loads, it cannot just be aerodynamically efficient inside a computer screen. It has to be physically rigid, exactly where you want it stiff. It has to flex predictably where you want aeroelastic sealing. In modern ground effect Formula One, flex discipline is the entire ballgame. If your floor warps just 3 millimeters too much, at 200 miles per hour, the underbody vortex explodes. The car violently porpoises. The driver lifts. Your lap time evaporates. Normally, an F1 team has to spend precious physical testing time, manufacturing budget, and compute power testing carbon fiber deformation under simulated aerodynamic load. It eats massively into their cost cap. Toyota simply took over carbon fiber design, stress modeling, and structural manufacturing for Haas components. Toyota engineers simulate resin flow, carbon weave stress, and heat deformation in their own dedicated facilities under standard manufacturing research parameters. They design the layup. They deliver the carbon parts to Haas. Those parts are pre-validated for structural flexing characteristics before a Haas mechanic even mounts them to the wind tunnel model. Look at the staggering dual pipeline dynamic this creates. It is a masterpiece of modern motorsport operational strategy. Aston Martin is trying to put everything under one massive roof at Silverstone. They are spending hundreds of millions on a new wind tunnel. They are buying legacy engineers. Haas went completely decentralized. They maintain their access to Scuderia Ferrari's top-tier wind tunnel in Maranello. They do not need to drop $200 million building a new wind tunnel in Cologne. They do not need to waste 3 years replicating Ferrari's rolling road infrastructure. They keep the Maranello tunnel access to validate ground effect floor physics directly alongside Ferrari's data stream. Simultaneously, they tap directly into Toyota's industrial manufacturing powerhouse in Japan and Cologne. While Ferrari provides the power unit, the gearbox, and the rear suspension, Toyota provides the computational brute force, the simulator infrastructure, and the rapid prototype carbon manufacturing. Haas has effectively split their technical overhead between two of the biggest, most dominant automotive titans on the planet. Ferrari handles the bleeding-edge mechanical core. Toyota handles the digital and structural accelerator. Haas operates strictly in the middle as a hyper-agile assembly, design, and race ops strike team. Rival teams are utterly furious. In the era of the cost cap, nobody expected a tiny midfield team to construct an alliance network this deeply integrated and devastatingly powerful. When Christian Horner, Toto Wolff, or Lawrence Stroll look at Haas now, they no longer see a budget team struggling to keep the lights on and the cars fueled. They see a lean strike unit backed by Toyota's supercomputers and Ferrari's wind tunnel. The telemetry data Haas can now process rivals the top 3 teams on the grid. So why can't the FIA just step in and ban it? Because to ban this specific workflow, the FIA would have to rewrite the fundamental definition of corporate supply partnerships across all of Formula One. They would burn their own sport to the ground. If the FIA tells Haas that they cannot use Toyota to optimize their CFD solver software or build carbon components, then the FIA has to immediately tell Mercedes that they cannot use Petronas for fuel fluid dynamics research. They have to tell Aston Martin that they cannot use Aramco's computing centers for combustion analysis. They have to tell Sauber and Audi that they cannot share general corporate software development with their parent company. The FIA cannot outlaw general engineering services without collapsing the entire commercial foundation of F1 technical sponsorships. Toyota did not break the rule. They simply read the regulation. They identified the exact microscopic line where F1 aerodynamic surface simulation ends and software and material manufacturing optimization begins. And they built an entire technical pipeline right on top of that line. This is exactly why Ayao Komatsu was smiling so widely during pre-season testing. While everyone thought Haas was just surviving the loss of engineers like Gary Gannon, they were quietly executing a brilliant operational strategy designed specifically for the next generation of F1 regulations. As the sport moves into the massive aerodynamic and engine shifts of 2026, the teams that win will not just be the ones with the biggest human payrolls. They will be the ones that squeeze 200% efficiency out of every single byte of data allowed by the FIA. Aston Martin bought the best engineers of the last decade. Haas and Toyota just built the machine that will beat them in the next one. If you want to see exactly how this technical partnership plays out on the track and keep up with the deepest engineering breakdowns in racing, hit subscribe right now. Drop a comment below and let me know. Is Aston Martin's strategy of buying human talent going to beat Haas's digital matrix? Or did Toyota just create the ultimate modern F1 cheat code? Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.